Hi, I'm attorney Lewis Haskell of the Law Office of Lewis S. Haskell here at 16 Pine Street in Lowell. And today is April 23. And as promised, I am making my video concerning the executive order suspending all immigration to the United States that President Trump signed last night. I have previously made actually one or two videos on this subject, and I had another post on my personal Facebook page. But in any event, I have the video, or not the video, I have the executive order. I got it online at whitehouse.gov. And it is more or less what I had said it would be, which is to say, as it stands, not very much. The good news is it's a 60-day order. Now, we do have to be on guard that it can always be extended, but for now, it's a 60-day order. The USCIS is basically closed, at least in terms of interviews. Our consulates around the world are not conducting immigration interviews or non-immigration interviews, any interviews. So immigration is kind of suspended right now anyway. So the 60 days by itself doesn't have to be important at all. And as long as this thing does not extend too much longer than the COVID-19 crisis, it becomes kind of much ado about nothing. But it is something, and let's talk about what it is, because there are a lot of carve-outs here that are nice. And the people who don't get a carve-out, well, they may have some issues. So let's dig into this. The first thing, of course, like everything, you have all these whereases that are sound and fury. They can be important in individual cases when you're in court or whatnot, but in terms of what's in the order, sound and fury signifying nothing. It limits entry into the United States of aliens as immigrants. Now, immigrant is a special word. It means people coming here with green cards or getting green cards or whatever, becoming lawful permanent residents. So right off the bat, it excludes tourists, students, fiancés, refugees, asylees. It excludes H visas. It excludes, treaty traders. It excludes anybody who's not getting a green card. By the way, refugee and asylees will eventually adjust to get green cards, but they're not arriving as immigrants. So by its terms, they are excluded from coverage. So they can come. All of those people can come, including fiancés, because they're also non-immigrants, even though they come here to get married and then get a green card. So since fiancés are an important part of what we do here, that's very comforting. The suspension is limited to people who are outside the United States. So if somebody comes to the United States, they're here in the United States and they get married and they're trying to adjust status, they're not covered. If somebody came here 20 some odd years ago, had a child who's now 21, who was born here, and now they want to adjust status as the parent of a United States citizen, they can do that. If a child is here, I have an interesting, hopefully I have an interesting case. They called me a few days ago and then all this broke. The person is the American is actually a lawful permanent resident, wants to get married to a woman who is a student and currently in student status. So they would be eligible for adjustment of status. And, well, she's here, so this doesn't affect her. So anybody who's in the country, here is a religious worker, a monk, and wants to get a green card out of that, not covered by the president's executive order. People here on H-1 visas who want to convert that to green cards, not covered. So they're all fine. Then it says, does not have an immigrant visa. So if you've already received a visa, you can still come. Now, nobody's received a visa in the last 4 weeks, so that's not very many people. But if you've already been to the embassy, had your interview, got your passport stamp, um, you're good to go. Then we have carve outs. Okay, so now we're talking about people who are trying to get green cards, who are not in the United States, who are so far covered by this order. Now we have a bunch of people in that class who can still come over. Well, it starts with lawful permanent residents, which is kind of funny, but I guess every time that President Trump signs an executive order, there's always this fear that he's trying to exclude people who already have a right to be here. If you got a green card, and you're out of the country, you can come back. We're kind of stuck with you, and frankly, I don't think the president has the power to exclude you, but he didn't. Physicians, nurses, healthcare professionals, researchers, so everybody, anybody who might be able to help out in the COVID-19 fight is allowed to come. Doctors and whatnot, it would certainly be silly to be excluding them right now. Oh yes, the EB-5 immigrant investors. If you want to come and invest $5 million and create jobs, we're still selling green cards. One of my favorite programs to talk about, because yes, you can buy a green card to the United States. It's much cheaper in Canada, but we are selling them. And then here are the two most important carve-outs from my point of view. Spouses, that's to say husbands and wives of United States citizens. Oh my God, I've got a client, his wife is in Russia, and he's been freaking out since Trump made this announcement. But he's a U.S. citizen, so if they ever reopen the consulate and interview her, she can come. And children under 21 of United States citizens. What strikes me as interesting about this one is it does not say unmarried children under 21, but I think it is a requirement in here. But it says any alien who is under 21 years old and is the child of a United States citizen or a prospective adoptee. So if they're coming in on one of the adoption programs. And then there's some categories that are very common that would support law enforcement activities, which is good. If we make a deal with a drug lord who wants to rat out the big kingpin in exchange for a green card, he can still have his green card. So I was worried about that one. Members of the United States Armed Forces, their spouses and children. That's always nice that we stop hosing our brave men and women who are out there risking their lives for us, right? And certain special immigrant categories. And then this catch-all about national interest. There is language down here which says what we already know, which is that this does not apply to asylum, refugee status, withholding of removal, protection against the Convention Against Torture. The Convention Against Torture would trump any executive order anyway. And then finally that this becomes effective today at 11:59 p.m., so in a few more hours, and it is 60 days. So basically that's the long and the short of it. There are some folks, and I do have some clients I've got to talk to, because for example, parents of United States citizens who are not in the country are impacted by this. Anybody abroad being sponsored by a lawful permanent resident. This one, particularly bothers me because right now, the category for spouses and unmarried children under 21 of lawful permanent residents, green card holders, that's current. So they're supposed to come just as quickly as the spouses and children under 21 of United States citizens, except now there's a difference. And frankly, unmarried children over 21 of lawful permanent residents actually are in a shorter line than U.S. citizens, but this kind of changes that. They're unfortunately affected. But even for them, the good news, there is some good news here. Because of all these other carve-outs, Now, if you're, already, look, if you're the spouse, if you're the wife of a lawful permanent resident and you're at the front of the line, if you're a parent of a U.S. citizen and you're already at the front of the line, you're just waiting for the consulate to reopen, then what I'm about to say doesn't help you. But the consulate's been closed for, a month now, the lines are getting pretty long. And so if you're one of these people and in front of you in line, you have husbands and wives of U.S. citizens, you have minor children of U.S. citizens, at least that part of the line in front of you is clearing. And so you are getting a little bit closer to interview. Although, again, particularly if this thing extends, there will come a point in time where the front of the line is a bunch of excluded people. And that's going to be a real problem. But the good news is we're not there yet. By the way, another group really adversely affected by this is the diversity visa people. That's 50,000 people a year who get their visas through the diversity lottery. The president's been very hostile to the diversity visa lottery program since before he was elected. So I guess we shouldn't be surprised that he was going to do something. He knocked that category out altogether. Again, I don't represent so many of those people, so it's hard for me to speak to specific cases. But they are included in this order. They are currently excluded for the next 60 days. And the scary part is, or so. That's really where we have to be on the lookout, is just to make sure that he doesn't extend this thing indefinitely. Because that carve out is, this probably covers a good 250,000 people a year if you stretch it that far, because it includes brothers and sisters of U.S. citizens, married children of U.S. citizens, adult, older children of U.S. citizens. It's a lot of people. If it starts to become, a more permanent looking thing. So in any event, that's what we've got. As I say, he's gotten everybody riled up, and which, he's good at. But unless he does something else, I think every little thing's going to be all right. So until we have more news, and I will report it when it comes, please stay safe and stay healthy. And I look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.